Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment and cross our fingers and toes that Facebook's going to cooperate with us tonight. It was not very helpful during our draft stream, so fingers crossed. Connect over to Instagram. I'll let Mr. Producer keep an eye on Facebook, but we're live. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, you and I dipped out on Thursday night, about an hour or so into the stream. I came back in for a second with some very surface reactions to Jahdae Barron being the Broncos' first round pick. And you were going to jump in too, but then the news got hot and heavy. You weren't able to jump back in, dutifully cranking out the articles. So nobody's really heard. I mean, Twitter, X, that's one thing. Drop your gut reaction. We'll get to the whole class, but drop your gut reaction to the Broncos taking Jahdae Barron at pick 20 when Omarion Hampton's chilling.
Like everybody else, Chad, I was shocked. I mean, I did not. You could have given me 20 different scenarios, 20 different guesses as to who the Broncos' first round pick would have been, and Barron was not on that guest list. But when I thought about it the next day and I let emotions kind of simmer down, Sean Payton told us this the whole time. He talked about it a few weeks ago by saying he doesn't want to miss the crystal for the blender or whatever he said. Then a couple weeks before that, he said he's actually comfortable with the running backs. And then George Payton said they could go rounds 2 through 6, and he left out round 1. So, and then also Sean Payton with Kay Adams, he talked about it's not just a receiver or running back or tight end that can help out Bo Nix. It could be a defensive lineman. It could be an inside linebacker. It could be a safety. And sure enough, they got a defensive back. So it's going to help out the team. And I can't be a hypocrite because I said any pick they make at 20 would make the Broncos a better team, and it makes the Broncos defense a hell of a lot better, Chad, pairing him with PS2 and putting him under Vance Joseph's wing. So again, I was surprised, but looking back on it, it was a pragmatic pick if they're not that high on Riley Moss, which in hindsight, they're not.
Well, and that's the thing is, I thought to myself, oh, right away, I'm like, oh, implications for Riley Moss. But the more time has marched on, it seems like, because you don't draft a corner in the first round to play nickel, at least not traditionally. But the more time that's passed, the more it seems like a move targeted for the nickel with the upside benefit that, hey, Barron can play anywhere in the secondary. Literally, you could put him anywhere in the secondary, including the boundary, because you drill a little deeper. Dylan had an article on this, or at least that touched on this today, how the alarm bells got to be singing in Jaquan McMillan's head because of the slot thing. And you think, we thought, well, the Broncos pretty much have it solved because his first year as a starter, 2023, Zach, he was one of the better nickel corners in the league. And then last year, a little bit of a step back. Well, if you really get into the analytics, it wasn't a little bit of a step back. It was a lot of a bit of a step back. Pardon my grammar. For example, Zach, in 2024, McMillan gave up 77 receptions in coverage on 110 targets, which was the second most in the league at nickel. Might have been second most in the league cornerback for 778 yards, 413 of which came after the catch. So to me, this is more of an indictment on McMillan, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where he's going to end up. In terms of Zach, who's going to be sleeping the lightest between now and the end of training camp, between Moss and McMillan, it's probably McMillan, but all bets are off because he's a first round pick.
A couple other thoughts I had were is the fact that the Broncos feel very comfortable with where they're at as a team, Chad. I think they firmly believe they're in a championship window under Bo Nix's rookie contract, and they drafted like they feel that way, that they can add the cherries on top of the sundae instead of focusing on the ice cream or the syrup or the nuts or anything else, Chad. So that's basically how I view the Barron pick. It's making a strength that much stronger, and damn the mock draft. Sean Payton called them embarrassing but entertaining.
But also said that they read them. So it's like, hey, you can call them embarrassing, coach, and you can be there like, ha, 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 we got you. But you read them, dude. So you read them. Papa Bear. Dude, Papa Bear, are you coming on Thursday night? You wanted to come on after the draft, right? So are we planning on you Thursday? Let me know in the chat. Because for whatever reason, I didn't put it in my calendar, but I just thought to myself, oh, Thursday's got to be Papa Bear. Opened up my calendar, and you're not in there. So I just put you in there. But you'll have to let me know if that doesn't work for you. But he says, good evening, Broncos country, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. I give an amazing A for our draft. Hashtag God bless USA. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life, Broncos for life, Knicks for 6. Thank you for that, big dog. Always appreciate the support. My grade would be something like a B or a B minus out of the gates. Now, this comes, Zach, with the caveat of you can't truly grade a draft class till a few years down the road, but we all know that. So just off the cuff, B minus. What's your grade for the class overall? Because let's just run through it. Second round, RJ Harvey after a couple of trade backs. Third round, wide receiver that nobody really saw coming, with the exception of maybe Eric Trickle, but not in the third round, in Illinois' Pat Bryant. Then they trade up again at the tail end of the third round to draft defensive lineman from LSU, Savion Jones. Then they draft Q Robinson, the rush linebacker, special teams maven, in the fourth. Sixth round is the punter, who Scott and I loved at the Senior Bowl. If you're going to draft a punter, that's the guy you draft, Jeremy Crawshaw. And then seventh round, they draft the 6'8" almost basketball player with an insane vertical jump. What's his name? Caleb. I think it's pronounced Loner, or is it Launer? Either way, that's just the rundown in case you missed it, Zach. Before we grab Eric Holt, what's your grade?
It reminds me a lot, Chad, off the cuff of the 2022 class that had Nick Bonito, where we didn't really know what to think. Bonito caught us for a surprise and threw us for a loop, but it turned out with some patience to be a good class. So I'm right there with you. Savion Jones might be my favorite pick of the entire class. The value they got there and what he brings to the table and on defensively is truly amazing. So I'm going to go B- with you there.
And honestly, too, I mean, they leaned into the football character thing, the leadership thing. The first 3 picks, all of them were team captains. You got to love that. Eric with a generous super chat. Thank you, buddy. And by the way, guys, you got to give us your grades. Sound off in the chat. Says, hey, guys, we had a great draft. I'm super excited because I called RJ. He's a Sproles clone. Q is a Vaughn clone. Bryant, a Michael Thomas clone. The tight end from Utah is Graham-esque. Savion is for the future. And Barron is going to raise HE double hockey sticks. Hashtag let's go. Yeah, dude. RJ, I'm stoked on RJ being a Bronco. The thing that slightly disappointed me in the moment was simply that I viewed him as more of like a late third, fourth round guy. But again, my base devolves back to in Peyton I trust. If Sean Payton evaluated what was still at that point in the draft, Zach, pick 60 in the second round after 2 trade backs, amid deep running back class, and he says RJ's the guy for me, I'm going to trust that, even though, you know, the consensus kind of stock on him was somewhere, for the most part, early day 3. To be honest with you, he was more viewed as like best case third round, more likely round 4 or 5. I'm not going to question it that much, because again, if you look at Sean Payton, first of all, Sean Payton, I do trust him with what he's done so far for the Broncos, but also, Zach, if you look at his track record drafting running backs, it is literally a sterling resume. So I'm not going to question it that much.
They basically admitted that they would have liked Ashton Jeanty, but it was just too far to trade up for him, so it wasn't realistic. They didn't make a play up for Trey Henderson. They let the board fall to them, and they took the best running back available on that board. They love Harvey's tape. I think Sean Payton said, he said everyone be quiet when they were watching RJ Harvey, his college film. But this is also another sign that they do have genuine confidence, like Sean Payton said a few weeks ago, Chad, in Audric Estime. I think Estime is going to be the early down starter and then work RJ Harvey into the mix, maybe on passing downs or other situations. But it dictated to me that they're happy with the incumbents, both at receiver and running back.
Totally. Lots more to get into, guys, including the depth of this class. The Broncos also have signed, reportedly, 15 college free agents. We can talk a little about them. But first, guys, hey, listen, the draft is in the books. Got to ask yourself, if you're ever watching sports, do you find yourself wishing there was a way to better get into the game? Well, let's go. You can do that with Underdog. Finally, there's a way to make picks on sports without Zach leaving the house. The game is in your hands.
And to play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, like touchdowns, strikeouts, points scored, and more. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all baseball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your sports knowledge.
That's right, guys. I absolutely love playing Underdog. Download the Underdog app. Sign up now using our promo code MHuddle to unlock that special offer, up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun with your football priest when you sign up with our promo code MHuddle and claim that special offer today. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and President of State where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call a 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, we have Phil McLaughlin checking in on Facebook. Glad to see that the connection was smooth tonight. Great to see you, buddy. Thank you for the stars saying good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. He loves the pick. Jahdae Barron will be a star. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty conspicuous, Zach, if you think about it, that he won the Jim Thorpe Award, which is handed out to the best defensive back in college football each year, over Travis Hunter. So it's pretty impressive. The dude is a baller. And that's one of those things where being the devil's advocate in terms of picking nits, I understand why people were like, man, we were thinking weapons, build a nest around Bo Nix. But as you said, Zach, you go back to some of the big hints that the Broncos were telegraphing pre-draft, especially at the combine when Sean Payton waxed poetic about, hey, what are the best ways to build weapons around Bo Nix, give him the best chance to succeed? And he starts talking about cornerbacks and defensive linemen. You're going, yeah, smokescreen. Turns out, no. They very much were hopeful that he would fall, Jahdae Barron, and turns out that he did, Zach.
Yeah, and they're just, again, trying to capitalize on a strength. And we were shocked too, Chad, when the Broncos fired Ben Kotwika after the season. But if you go back and figure out why, the Chargers game, for example, with the Tremont Smith blunder, that same Chargers game, the secondary got picked apart. The Bengals game after that, when there's a playoff spot at stake, they got picked apart, even with Riley Moss. I think they went back to that a little bit, and they said, even with Patrick Surtain, even with Brandon Jones and some of the other players we have, we're still a little vulnerable there. Let's make this secondary truly locked down.
And let's keep in mind that they did invest resources this offseason to build the nest around Bo Nix relative to weapons. Free agent joker tight end, Evan Ingram. Second round, an RB1 in RJ Harvey, a guy who brings explosion. And also, you want that joker? There you go. He's a guy that you can move around. He can catch passes. The biggest wart relative to RJ Harvey is how quickly can he get up to speed as at least a plausible pass blocker. And then you add Pat Bryant in the third as a X-type guy that can be moved around the formation. He can play as a big slot. Not a super fast dude in a straight line, Zach, but he's got a phenomenal route tree, great at the catch point. You can run him as, the newfangled slant god as well. And then also it's, a little bit of a flyer on Loner in the seventh round, the 6'8" former basketball player, which again, how many of us, when the Broncos seemingly put a flyer in on Devon Vele last year, a 26, 27-year-old rookie, genuinely expected him to even make the roster, let alone start almost out of the gates over a tenured veteran like Tim Patrick. So keep those expectations in check. The Rock checking in. What's up, brother? Saying good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. So good to see you, Mike. Hope you had an enjoyable draft experience. I know you had to work during some of it, but we were there streaming right along for you to keep up with all the information. Eric Flynn jumping in with a grade, says A, strictly because I trust their decisions based off the track record. And I could see myself giving such a grade. Again, if I'm being brutally honest, and you might not get this level of honesty from every podcaster in the NFL sphere, so to speak, but kind of like many of you, if there was a disappointment, there's two prongs to this for me, Zach, not being like a straight A. One, I didn't really. A lot of the guys I felt were better value, and not just because of name recognition, but just relative to fit, relative to roster need that were on the board rounds 1, 2, and 3, I'll say. Okay. They went a totally different direction. Now I'm still trusting it. That's why they're getting more than a passing grade. The other aspect is I wonder, could you have gotten Pat Bryant in the fourth round? Could you have gotten RJ Harvey in the third round, late in the third? They didn't want to risk it though. So again, that devolves back to the in Peyton I trust, and that's why, hey, trust it, Zach.
Yeah, trust the process. Same philosophy with Bo Nix. Yeah, everyone's thought it was a couple picks or a round too early, and we trust Sean Payton in the process, and it turned out very well.
That is an excellent point as well. The lady D checking in from the top rope.
Thank
Love you,
Deanna.
Deanna. She says, loved the draft by the end. I need to know what week in September you guys are going to do the meet and greet so I can buy tickets. They're at a good price right now. Super excited for this year. Go Broncos, MHH for life. So the schedule, we got to wait for the schedule. That's the only thing. Usually in May, Zach, is when it drops, right? So as soon as we have the schedule, I can give you a specific answer to that. Unfortunately, don't have a solid concrete date for you right this second, but ASAP, I promise on that, Lady D.
Yeah, thank you so much, Z. And I think the schedule release was announced to be like May 14th, 13th, 15th, something like that. So we have a few weeks to go, and then we'll have a schedule release show and then figure out when the meet and greet will be. But it'll be probably be in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I would say, Chad, huh?
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, it'll be early. It'll be in the first quarter of the season for sure. The earlier the better, because we want to capitalize on the probability of favorable weather, because we spend 3-4 hours, sometimes more, depending on, is it a night game? Is it a typical 2 p.m. ish kickoff? We prefer good weather. And the first kind of informal meet and greet I did there, pre this being on the live stream podcast, we did it way back in 2015. It's not official, so it doesn't count, but it was the CJ Anderson overtime to the house wins the game against the Patriots that Brock started. And that game was supposed to be, we were supposed to be out there tailgating all day long. It was an evening game, Sunday Night Football. Ended up being bitterly cold, like the coldest I've ever experienced it in Denver, and a torrential snow the whole time. So we ended up at a bar across the parking lot called Brooklyn's, which was fun in and of itself. When it comes to planning these things and knowing great people like you are going to be making the trek from goodly distances, we want to hedge as best we can for not only the matchup, but more about the weather. Taylor Christensen, what's up, big dog? He says, hey, guys, other than Barron, I'm very
skeptical
about the class. I felt we should have added more offensive weapons. If this is a bust class, someone must be held accountable. Also, why 2 edge rushers? Go Broncos. Well, Savion Jones is more of an interior guy. He's in terms of his build and body type, he's like Draymond Jones, a little bit of a tweener. Only I think he's probably a little bit better, more physical, more comfortable as a run defending guy up front, can hold his own better than Draymond did initially. And at LSU, yeah, they would rush him from the edge and all that. But in Denver, he's going to be more of a hand in the dirt interior player, a la Zach Allen, a la really John Franklin Myers. And then Robinson, dude, I've heard rumors that he could end up playing off ball.
Yep.
I don't know. He didn't have a lot of time on task at Alabama, Zach, playing edge. He was mostly relegated to special teams, and a big reason for that, as far as his edge stuff too, when he did get his chance last year, he got injured a few games into the season with that elbow, which is one of the reasons why he was available in the 4th round. A lot of draft nicks who I trust, they're like, hey, if he's not injured, Zach, and he's able to finish last season, he's probably top 100 pick. And it didn't end up too far outside of that in the final analysis anyway. But I understand, Taylor, your skepticism. I do. But again, my advice to you, in Peyton, you should trust.
Yeah, you're right about Jones. He's probably going to end up playing along the defensive line. And Robinson, like you said, he's a tweener. Could play inside, could play outside. He's going to probably rush the passer. But the point is, you can never have too many pass rushers. There's no such thing of having too many edge rushers. That's how you get after the quarterback. And based on that, and based on the Barron pick in the 1st round, the Broncos want to go toe for toe with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. And to do that, got to have a solid defense.
And again, it's not as if they didn't draft any offensive skill players. They drafted a running back, a receiver, and a tight end, which is basically what everyone expected him to do. It wasn't any of the players most fans who were paying attention really expected. And the tight end, instead of it being like a top 3 or 4 rounds tight end, Zach, it was like the last thing they did. But also one of the more interesting picks they made. So Mike Thompson checking in as well. Appreciate you, buddy. Says you made a YouTube short based off my comments. Hashtag go Broncos. Yeah, dude, we have a guy who's from the Super Chat Superstar community. Shout out to Jason. You guys might remember him, you OGs. Nimbus Productions was his handle on YouTube. And he makes the clips for us, the vertical clips that you see, those shorts on YouTube. You see him on Instagram, Facebook, pretty much everywhere. And he has occasionally, I'll point him in a direction saying, hey, clip this. But 99% of what you see, guys, is him going off what he feels like is interesting as a fan, because I trust that. So, yeah, glad to see that one of our vertical videos was based off a Mike Thompson comment.
That's right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, let's talk for a second here about some of, Zach, the post-draft activity. Broncos today, this came out. I mean, they got started yesterday, obviously, and a lot of these names were basically announced last night, but I wanted to wait till there was a reliable reporting on it, so to speak. 15 college free agents signed. Hey, George. Hang tight, buddy. Pop back up there on us. So here you go. Really interesting. According to Mike Kliss, Clay Webb, offensive line, Jacksonville State. J.B. Brown, linebacker, Kansas. Joe Michalski, O-line, Oklahoma State. Courtney Jackson, receiver, Arkansas State. Johnny Walker Jr., linebacker, Missouri. Kendall Bowler, corner, Florida A&M. Marcus Cox, O-line, Kentucky. Jerwan Newton, wide receiver, Toledo, I believe, Jerwan. Christian Dowell, nose tackle, Tennessee Martin. Xavier Truss, guard, Georgia. Joaquin Davis, receiver, North Carolina Central. Jaden Robinson, cornerback, Oregon State. Kareem, I believe is how it's said, Reed, linebacker, Utah. Christian Williams, D-line, Missouri. And Joshua Pickett, cornerback, Duke, Zach. So in this crop of college free agents, you have multiple corners, multiple linebackers, multiple D-line, multiple receivers, and multiple offensive line. Were you surprised, Zach, that they did not sign any of the undrafted running backs?
No, I think there's a bigger move at play here, Chad, and I don't know what it's going to be. It could be a trade like Breece Hall supposedly on the trade block, a couple other veteran running backs out there supposedly up for grabs. I don't think the Broncos are done here, so I'm not too surprised. But the one signing they did make, I'm not too familiar with any of these UDFAs, but Clay Webb had a draftable grade. And there's a crazy rumor on social media about him, but based on what he's done on tape, on film, he could push for center. I don't know about starting, Chad, but some guy you could put away for developmental and have in the pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't know very much about any of these guys. I'm waiting. Eric's going to be dropping a analysis article to give everybody some more insight on each one of these guys. But yeah, Taylor jumping in to say also Greenlaw's hurt. Hope he's ready to go in September. So the initial report on Dre Greenlaw was that he was seriously hurt, and that was NBC Sports. But Benjamin Albright of KOA said it was, pardon me, a strain and should only be a couple of weeks. So FYI on that. But that's one of the problems with Greenlaw is the injury jacket, injury history. I don't even want to say that he's injury prone, Zach, and speak that into existence, but it's obviously one of the concerns and why the Broncos need to have viable alternative contingencies in place.
Yeah, it was reported that he tore his quad, I believe, while training. But a strain really is a grade of a tear. So he was injured apparently, but it's not as bad as first reported. He'll probably miss the offseason program, might dip into training camp, but he should be good to go for the regular season. But that's the thing, Chad. As good as these players are, either in college or the NFL, when you acquire injury-prone players, and we've been saying it for years, spanning different regimes, those players more than likely end up re-injured. That's just the reality of it. But they do feel Drew Sanders, Chad, has a future starter potential at inside linebacker. So we'll see how that shakes out.
The only thing that concerns me about this is there's been a recent hit. The Broncos have done great since Sean Payton arrived. We've in keeping guys healthy, and we've sang their praises to the high heavens. But there have been multiple instances, Zach, of off-season either injuries or procedures where the initial billing is that it's short-term, they won't be out long, should be ready by this, should be ready by that. And in many cases, they end up lingering much longer and deep into the either the summer or early season. And that's my only concern here with Greenlaw, is that it could stretch into the future farther than what insiders like Albright are reporting. But I'm going to stay optimistic, Zach. I'm going to stay positive and just hope that, hey, if it devolves to that worst case scenario, Zach, if Greenlaw say is unable to go week 1, and let's say Drew Sanders, through all of the reps of training camp and the preseason, isn't trusted yet, it's not ideal. But you did re-sign a starting caliber linebacker in Justin Sternad, who you could plausibly, Zach, line up next to Alex Singleton short term till Greenlaw got back.
I'm going to cope a little bit and say here, if it was going to happen with Greenlaw, at least it happened in April and not in September. So he'll have a chance to get right. The Broncos medical staff will take a great care of him and do a good job. And I'm optimistic with you that he will be there for week 1.
Yes. And look, that's it makes me wonder how much of the information was available and known during the draft, because they didn't really look too hard, it seemed, at genuine inside linebackers. Again, they signed a couple as priority free agents, including Walker, including Reed, but it's a situation to monitor, that's for sure. Is it a concern? Yes. Am I terrified that Greenlaw is going to be a bust? No, I'm not fearing that, but I'm concerned that he won't be available when we're hearing he's expected to be.
How about the UDFA they picked up last year, Lavelle Bailey, who had that pick 6 in the preseason? I'd like to see more of him and what he can do, more so than Sternad, for sure.
And we might end up getting seeing that happen in reality. Okay, let me jump to the chat. I saw something from let's see what Ronk says. Ronk says, my favorite undrafted players signing with the Broncos are Johnny Walker and Missouri of the Missouri Tigers. Okay, we'll come back to that. I gotta look something up here on that. I'm gonna circle back. Big Earn said something as well. He says he's got an A on the class. He even DM'd me, and he says in around 4 years, my grade will be the same, A. Again, I think this is one of those classes, Zach, that has the potential. Nobody has a crystal ball. We can't promise or guarantee it, but it has some of the makings of a class that might, to the initial blush, seem underwhelming, but in the fullness of time, just like 2021 wasn't out of this world. Obviously, you got pretty good pick in Patrick Surtain, but like think about Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper was a guy that should have gone somewhere like where Robinson went this year, somewhere like 4th, maybe even as high as a 3rd round, but he had that heart thing that caused him to fall, ended up being a 7th round pick. I didn't have huge expectations for him, and he turned out to be one of the team's best draft finds of this era. Similar across the board if you look at George Payton's track record as a draft artist, Zach. And I think this class, while it doesn't have a lot of the huge marquee names that Broncos country had begun to kind of set its heart on, the guys, I'm telling you, Pat Bryant is a guy 6 months from now you are going to be absolutely head over heels in love with. Same with RJ Harvey. So trust the process.
That's why I said it reminds me of 2022's class, because you don't have the slam dunk no-brainer. You don't have the PS2. You don't have the Bo Nix. And how many people crapped on the 2022 class, or at least Nick Benito, until last year when Benito broke out and everyone's saying, okay, well, maybe George Payton knows what he's doing then. Maybe these guys know what they're doing. And I think this could be a situation now. So give it time, be patient, and let the process play out.
We have a super chat from Okie Engineer. What's up, bro? Thank you. Says this defense will be legit. No fly zone 2.0. Let's go. I mean, point to a better on paper right this second. And I get it. It's on paper. We haven't seen Hufanga yet. We haven't seen Barron yet. But point to a better secondary in the NFL. Seriously, you got Pat Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year. You've got now also the reigning Jim Thorpe, best defensive back in college football. You got Riley Moss, who, look, he struggled a little bit when he returned, but the entire season as a first-year starter, he was locked down. And the way that defense, Zach, went sideways when they lost Riley Moss, that 4 games he was gone, I mean, it was insane. You're having a shootout against Jameis Winston and the Browns. Why? Well, now you know why. But you throw in Barron, we'll see exactly where he fits. But Hufanga, Jones, who was a Pro Bowl alternate last year, this could be the best secondary in the NFL. And granted, right now that's all on paper. They got to go out and take that exciting potential and convert it, Zach, into production. But that's where we're at on the calendar. We have to kind of hang our hat a little bit, Zach, on paper and potential.
And then you throw in who else is on the defense alone: Zach Allen, JFM, Malcolm Roach, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Dre Greenlaw. The Broncos have a top 2 defense in the NFL, and they ain't 2. Put it that way.
Yeah, one of the things that upset me is, unfortunately, was how good the Raiders draft was, dude. Like,
excellent.
The Raiders draft was redonkulous. Real quick, I'm going to pull it up.
I mean, just Jensen and Besh alone.
I know, dude. I was heartbroken on the stream when they took Besh, but they only made 5 picks. Ashton Genty, Jack Besh, Darian Porter, Caleb Rogers, and Charles Grant. But like you said, just those first 2, it's like, oh, dude. Genty, yeah, we kind of learned long ago to like not set your heart on Ashton Genty. He was going to go early. But Jack Besh, man, I was really hoping for him, dude. Broncos had their chances too. But oh well, so they seem to be Spytech and, working with Carroll, they seem to be doing the right thing. So beware the Raiders.
Yeah, and they added Geno Smith at quarterback. You have Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. That offense could be a little dangerous, but fortunately now the Broncos have an even better defense. So FTR.
But think about George Payton's first year as GM. First round pick, Pat Surtain, number 9 overall. Javonte, who was a starter until the entire time he played, basically. I mean, I guess his rookie year, he was a split starter with Melvin Gordon. Then he got hurt, starter the final 2 years. Quinn Miners, all-pro. Baron Browning ended up being a bust because of the injury bug. Caden Stearns didn't really pan out, injuries again. Jamar Johnson was pretty much a swing and a miss. Seth Williams, late round swing and a miss. Kerry Vincent. But then you get Jonathan Cooper. That was a deep draft in terms of the number of picks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 player draft class, Zach. And then let's focus on the 2022. Like you mentioned, Nick Bonito was Broncos' first pick that year because we didn't have a first rounder due to the Russell Wilson trade. Nick Bonito, round 2. Greg Dulcich, bust, round 3. Damari Mathis, round 4. Uwazurike, the defensive lineman, round 4. Delarin Turner Yell, round 5. So you've got Mathis, Uwazurike, Turner Yell still on the roster. Montreal Washington didn't quite pan out. Luke Wattenberg's your starting center. Matt Henningson's still on the roster, and Fayon Hicks was the last one who's no longer with the team. So again, I think this class, to be honest, and then I'm going to grab Phil here, has the potential to be way better than 2022 and maybe even 2023. So these players, again, you have to reckon with the difference between how the team viewed them and how consensus on the outside, and especially with draft media and individual team podcasts or podcast networks like ours, you got to divorce yourself from that a little bit and do your research. Look into Pat Bryant, look into RJ Harvey, these guys, and look into Jahdae Barron. You will get excited like Borat. I am so excited. Phil, my biggest disappointment in the draft was Crawshaw. I'm not saying he isn't good, just I feel there were backs and receivers available I would have liked to have gotten. I feel you. And Eric Trickle, he's like, you never draft a punter. Kenny says, good evening, everyone. Don't call me crazy, but Broncos country, you're going to fall in love with our rookie punter, Jeremy Crawshaw. He's a master at pinning teams inside the 10 in college, added weapon for our defense. Yeah, so again, Trickle's like, hey, good punter. I just, of the philosophy, you never draft a punter. I don't subscribe to that personally, although I get it. I understand it. If you're going to draft a punter, again, dude, I saw this guy up close. Scott and I just watched him all week long at the Senior Bowl. Not only did he have that leg that made you go, whoa, and he's popping them great distance, but Zach, his accuracy was unbelievable. He could pin that ball, put that ball wherever you ask him to put it. And if you go back and watch his tape at Florida, as was just mentioned there, you see it over and over and over again. So you've got a savvy special teams coordinator in Darren Rizzi, who was a head coach candidate around the league and coveted amongst all the teams, chose to come to Denver with Sean Payton. And he's going to know how to use this guy. And the Broncos did their homework on Crawshaw, Australian-born, former rugby guy. They're stoked on him, and they didn't want to risk not having control of him coming to Denver, which I get. And again, Zach, last thing, and I'm serving this back to you. You touched on this earlier, and I think it's a great way. One of the great ways to describe it was something Nick said, I believe it was on Thursday night after the Jahdae Barron pick, which is, you look at some of the perennial contender teams in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles, and so forth. And they have their rosters are so well built. They do such a good job. By the time you get to the draft, Zach, they're just able to let the board fall to them. They take their guys and kind of what you might call luxury picks, like Barron. Who would have thought that cornerback was really anywhere close to what we would consider, Zach, a first round need? But it's a luxury pick. He was there. And so you're going to take the best defensive back, Jim Thorpe, in college football. I get it, Travis Hunter, all that. But still, that's the way I look at it too. The Broncos have busted Zach into a higher echelon of standing as a team that allows them to do that, allows them that luxury.
When we did those game breakdowns week by week by week, we got to special teams and it was green, except for one area. It was always punter. And we always got on Riley Dixon, and it was a running joke for anyone who watched the pods then, but they needed to replace him. And if you asked anyone who the Broncos punter would be today or before the draft, it was Matt Hawk, who they signed to a 1-year deal. And to Todd's, I think it was Todd's question or comment, he said, I would have liked a running back or receiver there. What are the chances that running back or receiver drafted where Crawshaw would have seen the field and made an impact? Whereas Crawshaw is going to be on the field pretty consistently and can flip the field and can be a legitimate weapon for him. Don't discount that for what Darren Rizzi wants to do.
When you start seeing him pinning opponents, especially now that he's in thin air of Mile High, more than half the time this year, you're going to be glad the Broncos threw a 6th-round flyer on this cat. Diamond Rattler jumping in with a super chat. Just got Gainsayer in the mail. Let's go. Sick, bro. Thank you for supporting Bridge the Gap, buddy. I really appreciate it. My band is like my hobby. Some dudes hunt, some dudes do other stuff. I do music, and it's one of my favorite things in the world. So thank you for the support, Big Dog. I hope you dig the album. And by the way, again, I'll remind you, if you order from bridgethegapmerch.com, that comes from me. And I can make sure that if you would like it signed, it gets signed. So put a few of them in the mail just on Friday. In fact, probably half of them were from MHH supporters signing little Bronco notes on the back of a punk rock album. It's kind of ironic. But Mike Thompson jumping back in. Thank you, pal. Say, it's easy to draft well when you pick at the top. I think he's talking about the Raiders here, Zach. So, me complimenting them. They had a good draft. Yeah, I would say it's easier, but you see those same teams, Mike, getting it wrong year after year, right? That are often cellar dwellers, Jacksonville, Cleveland, you name it. So someone's got to break the cycle eventually. I hope it's not this Raiders team, Zach. I hope that it ends up not working out because, I'm a kid from the 80s. I utterly hate the Raiders, to quote Nick again, the hideous silver and black, but I got to tip my cap and give them credit where credit's due. 2 great picks to open the draft.
I mean, how about the Raiders messing it up in years past? Jamarcus Russell ring a bell? Just because you're picking at the top does not mean you're going to nail the pick at all. So we have to give him credit. Like Chad said, credit where it's due.
Kirsten Bailey, drummer. Great to see you. Hope you've been rocking the kit, slapping the skins, so to speak. She says, excited for a new year. Check out Gainsayer. Support our boy. Thank you. You're such a sweetheart. I really appreciate it. Broncos for life. Yeah, do you have I went and watched some of your drum stuff when you first started commenting a year or 2 back. So keep it up. It's really cool. Really cool. I'm a drummer myself, but only out of necessity and curiosity. So I can play the drums. I'm not great. I'm pretty good, but I'm not great. So you should become great, Kirsten, and maybe you already are. So keep it rocking. All right,
Kirsten.
Back to the matters at hand here. I'm just seeing real quick. I have a few stories here, Zach, I want to get to. But I'm just doing a quick double take on the chat. And by the way, props to Eric Trickle, guys like Dylan, Carl, Nick, Lance. I mean, hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of live streaming the draft. And day 3 was literally, Zach, tectonic. I don't know if you guys caught this, but whatever it was, like nearly 4 hours into the stream, Eric had been talking about it all 3 nights. He's like, yeah, we're under this warning. Could be where he lives, there could be a earthquake because a volcano was erupting. 4 hours into the day three stream, literally on camera, earthquake. Eric's thing starts shaking. So tectonic draft stream in more ways than one at MHH. And Dylan rocking it. Yeah, we were bummed about Besh. Mason Taylor, I knew he wasn't going to end up in Denver. They were too far back in the second round, and he's too dang good. But Besh was there for the taking, Zach.
He was. The Broncos went in a different direction, and like we've been saying all podcasts, we can't deviate now. Trust the process and trust Sean Payton.
He was another one of those guys at the Senior Bowl that just jumps off the field, so to speak, while you're observing, while you're watching. He just stands out. He just pops. So, Dustin, let's address this. Denver had the worst draft in the AFC West. Sell me on the running back we drafted, because I don't see a joker. I see a guy who runs to the outside and doesn't between the tackles. Pat Bryant was the best pick in the draft. I live in Illinois, born and raised. This kid can play, great game speed. Yeah, dude. That is one of his penchants. Okay, I'm not going to lie. That's something that needs to get not so much coached out of him, because you want a running back that has the vision and the trust and confidence in his own ability, Zach, to bounce it outside when necessity calls. But he has really good vision. He can pound it between the tackles. And dude, he rushed for basically 3,000 yards over the last 2 years. I'm trying to pull up the hold on, I'll find it here in a second. Scouting report that shows, here's a key statistic from Eric's scouting report on him. Harvey led the FBS. Remember, Zach, we talked last year, Sean Payton, when he's telling the story about how they fell in love with Bo Nix, how they removed all the gimme throws and the system-oriented, scheme them open underneath, dump off stuff at Oregon. And they did that for all the quarterbacks and then built the stats based on that. And the analytics showed he was first in this, first in that, first in that, all the key metrics. That's kind of similar to what's happening here with Harvey. So Harvey led the FBS in gains of 10-plus yards. 23.3% of his carries, so a quarter of his carries eclipsed 10 yards. 35% of them went either, Zach, for a first down or a touchdown. And then he also averaged 16 yards per punt return. So, quoting Eric, Harvey's explosive run metrics would have definitely jumped out to Peyton and the Broncos. And by the way, the dude can catch. He can catch the ball. But unfortunately, you can't rely on him fully as a third down back until he can pass protect a little bit, plausibly, slightly, somehow. Otherwise, Zach, it becomes a tell that every time he's on the field, whether it's second, third down, whatever, etc., teams can scheme to that, and you got to avoid it. But I'm stoked on Pat Bryant. Go watch his stuff. He's one of those character guys. He's like a more explosive, more talented Tim Patrick, to be frank with you. So glad to hear you like Bryant, Dustin, but RJ's the truth. Maybe there were better options. I don't know. I'm trusting Sean Payton, but I disagree that Denver had the worst draft. Zach, what do you think?
I don't think the worst draft. I think other teams, relative to what they needed, had worse drafts overall, but worst is subjective. One of the reasons the Broncos couldn't run well last season is because they couldn't bounce it outside because the receivers couldn't block. Pat Bryant is an excellent blocking receiver on the edge. RJ Harvey does run between the tackles, by the way. He will bounce it outside, but you're also looking at it kind of not the whole picture. Audric Estime is going to be featured. Jaleel McLaughlin is going to be featured. You have other components that could be jokers like Evan Ingram who are going to be featured. You still have Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton. So when you look at the whole picture instead of just one individual player, I think it's a lot more palatable.
By the way, I mean, the Chargers, before I grab JB3 on Twitch, only made 3 picks. One of them was a guy Broncos fans had fallen in love with, Omarion Hampton. And then the receiver, Trey Harris, and the big defensive tackle, Jamari Caldwell. And they were done. I would say Denver's draft was better than that, honestly. And that's not only from a quantity perspective, but quality. Chiefs, Zach, four total picks, one in the first, one in the second, 2/3. Josh Simmons, an offensive lineman. The defensive tackle, Omar Norman Lott. Ashton Gallott, and Noel Williams, a corner. Meh. Like, they needed offensive line help. Obviously, they were humiliated and emasculated in the Super Bowl. That does not jump out to me as a better draft class than the Denver Broncos. And then I already went through the Raiders. So for what it's worth, JB3 degree, a lot of the chat was saying RJ was a reach and should have taken Sampson with the pick. Well, Sampson went 126 overall. Who would have also been a reach with the same pick? LOL. Yeah, I mean, you are what the NFL says you are. Like, hey, Shedeur Sanders is top 5 pick. Nope. Turns out he wasn't. So you are wherever you fall in the draft. Now we can say he's a first round caliber guy that fell to this round or that round or whatever. But now through the fact of history, Sampson would have been a reach. He ended up, but I liked Sampson. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna blow smoke up your skirt, so to speak. I liked Sampson pre-draft, Zach, more than RJ Harvey. But Sean Payton didn't. Payton liked Harvey more, and I'm going to trust that.
Yeah, I saw a comment a few seconds ago that said Sean Payton had his own board and George Payton had his own board. I mean, together, as opposed to the mocksters or those of us who felt like a person was too good to pass up. The Broncos didn't care. What did Sean Payton say about a year ago, Chad? He has 2 middle fingers and has gotten better about not using them. Well, he put 2 middle fingers in the air with this draft to anyone who thought he shouldn't take a certain player. It's his team, and he's going to do what he thinks is best.
I think maybe Pro Football Reference hasn't fully updated. Hold on, Chargers draft. Hold on. Yeah, they made a lot more picks than what I just mentioned. Hold on a second. Let me go through it. Where's draft class? Hold on. No, I don't need mocks. Where is it? Let's see if they have it on the team site. Sorry, hang tight, guys. I got it. I'll come back to it. I'll find it when I'm not on the mic for a second. Kenny Kilpatrick, we got the first 3 right, but for whatever reason, I'm going to have to double check the Chiefs now too, and the Raiders. I wonder why they have some of them, but not all of them in there. That's unusual for Pro Football Reference. Kenny Kirkpatrick, is it too soon to say we upgraded at cornerback from PS2 to PS4 with the addition of Barron? That's nice, dude. I like it. I like how you did that. The secondary definitely upgraded. I mean, nobody's upgrading Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain is as good as it gets in the NFL right now, but you're upgrading the secondary, that's for sure.
And to the previous thing about the draft classes, the Chiefs did get, I think, Jalen Royals and Brashard Smith, the running back in round 7. Smith, I wanted the Broncos to go after. So they had a decent draft, but the Broncos, relative to what they needed to their board to BPA, I think they had a nice haul as well. So we'll have to see how it plays out, Kenny.
Okay, let me see if this lists it. No, this doesn't list it. Man, what the hell? Roundup, that'll do it. Our SI brethren. Come on. Go. Let's see. No, that's not it either. I'm going to let it lie. I'll come back to it later. I'm stoked for this off. Oh, Scott's trying to, he's primal gesticulating. You ever seen that from Wanderlust? They do primal gesticulation. Scott's doing this right now in the green room. Trying to point to the private chat. Thank you, bud. Okay. So by team, okay, thank you. Hang tight, guys. Los Angeles Chargers, bam. Okay, so here's the full list. You ready? Is this better than the Broncos? Guys, you got to forgive me. I have been like doing nothing but focusing on what the Broncos did and the Broncos coverage after the fact because it's one article after another. I'm copy editing. So here we go. Omarion Hampton, Trey Harris, Jamari Caldwell. We already touched on those. Then round 4, Kyle Kennard, edge from South Carolina. Keandre Lambert-Smith, a receiver from Auburn. Oronde Gadsden, the tight end from Syracuse. He was somewhat interesting in the 5th round. Branson Taylor, a guard from Pitt. RJ Mickens, a safety from, I think, Clemson. Trequezi Bridges, corner from Florida. First 3 picks are really solid, but they're not blowing my mind. Let me see the Chiefs here. Chiefs, beyond Omar Norman-Lott, Ashton Gallott, and Noel Williams. Jalen Royals, that's right. I remember that. Jalen Royals that one concerns me a little bit. He's a solid player. And Brashard Smith, Zach, the SMU running back, another kind of potential Joker candidate style running back that we saw also at the Senior Bowl. He ended up being their 7th round pick. And then they also drafted Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker from Oregon, in the 5th. Solid. I would still not necessarily say that class off the cuff is better than Denver's. But I will allow there are a few more notable names on the list, like the Royals, like the Smith, Noel Williams, etc.
But it's kind of the same situation for Kansas City. I know they're picking 31 and the Broncos were 20, but they needed arguably, a receiver for Patrick Mahomes or maybe a running back. They didn't reach for one. They took an offensive lineman. The Broncos, they didn't reach. They took a defensive back. So it's very pragmatic thinking, and the best GMs think that way. So just believe in what George Payton and Sean Payton are doing, and I think it'll work out.
Last thing, then I'm grabbing George. This is the full Raiders. So it's like Pro Football Reference had the first half of each team's draft, which is weird because they have no, I'm pulling up the Broncos now on there. They're also the first half. Okay, so Genty Besh Porter, corner from Iowa State, Darian Porter, Caleb Rogers, the O-line, Texas Tech, Charles Grant, offensive tackle, William and Mary, Dante Thornton Jr., receiver from Tennessee, Tonka Hemingway, D tackle, South Carolina, JJ Pugs, I think, defensive tackle, Mississippi, Tommy Mellott. He's interesting, dude. He's an interesting guy, not as a quarterback, but as just one of those glue type receiver slot guys, just weapon guys. Former Montana State quarterback. Cam Miller, North Dakota State. Broncos had some connections to him during the pre-draft process. Cody Lindenberg was their 7th round flyer, the linebacker from Minnesota. So now we know all the picks in the AFC West. George Fox, I give our draft a solid B. What do you give it? I would have given us an A if we would have gotten 2 running backs. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Thank you, pal. I'm right there with you. B or B minus. Right now, I'll be as positive as possible and say solid B. I'll say that. That's my official out of first day after the draft concludes. Great, solid B.
Yeah, I was a little surprised as well, George. I thought the Broncos would get 2 running backs, 1 speed back, 1 power back, but they opted for RJ Harvey. And I don't know that they're done, but if they are, that means they really like Audric Estime, they like Jaleel McLaughlin, Blake Watson, Tyler Bidet, and we'll see how that all transpires.
It's really weird that they didn't sign any undrafted running backs. But then again, you have 3 on your roster. McLaughlin, Bidet, Bidet was a former draft pick, so 2. And Watson. T. Fish is jumping in with a super chat. Man, what is that? If that's a fish, you definitely fishes. You know how to fish. The only confusion I had was Q Robinson in the 4th. I would have liked another running back or the trenches, but I don't mind the depth. Clay Webb and Truss were nice undrafted free agents. I know the thing about Robinson is he's kind of reminds me a lot about just kind of the Jonathan Cooper thing, with the exception of he's a 4-core special teamer, Robinson. So I don't know, there's something in the back of my mind, Zach, tells me that part of the recruitment of, hey, Darren Rizzi, sign here, is I'm going to give you what you want in the draft. Tell me what you need, and I'm going to make sure we get the things you need in the draft. You can jump in the car and come with me to the grocery store type thing, because Robinson, that's how he's going to affect things initially. It won't be surprising if the Broncos carry 5 rush linebackers, Zach, on the 53, even if Q doesn't really see the field all that much as an actual outside linebacker, because of what he's going to bring to the table as a 4-core special teamer, who, by the way, what's his name? Nick Saban, Zach, said he's the best special teams player he ever coached. Hello, that's saying something, especially how long Saban coached, Zach, and the quality of players he coached over that span.
Yeah, a lot of people, and thank you, T. Fishers, for the comment. A lot of people are always hammering the Broncos for not filling out the depth and the backup spots, and they do so here, and people, still want another position. But look what happened with Greenlaw. He's out for a considerable amount now, a little while, and Robinson is a tweener who could play inside linebacker, maybe. So you have some depth there and some Band-Aid to put over the Greenlaw injury. You can never have too many defensive players in the front seven and too many pass rushers at outside linebacker.
Again, guys, people are saying the Broncos reached. Let's wrap it up. This is your 2-minute warning for any burning supers or questions. The the critics and many fans, not all of you, but many fans, say the Broncos reached hard on Harvey. They reached hard on Bryant and even Q Robinson. But something Zach brought up earlier, were you subscribing to those takes when the Broncos reached on Bo Nix? And if you weren't, ask yourself why and what's different about it. The reason why, maybe it's because the quarterback thing blinds you. Or maybe it's just simply you hadn't thought of it that way. But to me, again, it's a trust Sean Payton thing. If Sean Payton picked him in the second round, saw him as a second round guy, or at least I don't want to risk not getting him in the third, takes RJ Harvey, I'm going to trust it. And the same for Pat Bryant. And I'm telling you right now, both of those guys, 6 months from now, you're going to be thanking your lucky stars the Broncos drafted him. Pat Bryant's especially going to be one of those receivers in a offense quarterback, Zach, by Bo Nix, that's going to be able to make a lot of hay. It will be interesting to see kind of how well he battles on the depth chart in camp and stuff and moving up through the preseason. But that dude is going to be a weapon and reliable hands. I love his quote after the draft, Zach, no block, no rock. And he's like one of the top 2 or 3 blocking receivers in this class. So the Broncos knew what they were doing. Was it the big marquee names everyone was expecting in the premium rounds? No, it wasn't per se. But they know what they're doing, and I'm here for it.
And the same guy who was around and George Payton for the Bo Nix pick was also around when they took PS2 over Fields and caused a lot of stir there. And that turned out to be, in hindsight, a correct decision. So again, trust the process, let it play out.
Jeremy Sean, what's up, buddy? Says, I had Harvey ranked way over Sampson. That's cool, dude. Props to you. One of the things I loved about Sampson, too, was talking to him at the combine and listening to him talk. I don't remember why, Zach. It was one of those things where Zach and I would try to time it where one of us was down in the pit where they were talking while the other one was up in the room writing up whatever we got from the last media scrum, and we'd take turns. And I think I missed Harvey on one of those where I was either up there writing or like we were making our way down and missed him or something, but I wasn't able to talk. From a pure player perspective, I understand he's built to last more so in a Sean Payton scheme than say Dylan Sampson. He's short, Harvey. He's 5'8", but he's built, dude. He's thick, and I'm looking forward to him in Bronco uniform.
He's going to make the Broncos backfield better. And we really didn't care. It was like quarterback. Most of us didn't care who the Broncos ended up with at running back because anyone from this draft class would be an upgrade over the Blake Watsons and the Bidets and the McLaughlins of the world. And Harvey fits that bill. He's explosive. He can bounce it inside, bounce it outside. He can catch the ball. He's going to do a lot in the Sean Payton offense. Darren Sproles 2.0.
Yeah, I think what Todd is saying here is similar to how the Broncos said they're much more comfortable with their receiver room than the outside perspective all off season long. I think what he's saying is the Broncos maybe were believed they were a lot better at running back than the consensus outside the building was. You only needed one type thing, where we were thinking, hey, that's a prime position. You want to talk about not just need, but luck. If you're in a position to make luxury picks, double dip, take 2. But he says that he can't wrap his head around it. Not sure. I think that's what he's saying. But either way, I like Harvey, dude. And I was a little bit surprised, Zach, again, that they didn't sign a running back after the draft. Maybe like you were saying earlier, there are moves yet to be made. In fact, I think Bob wrote about that today as Bob Morris as potential free agent moves to come post-draft.
Yeah, Brees Hall's out there. I think Travis Etienne from the Jaguars is available. There's a lot of running backs the Broncos could call around on, and I don't think they're done. I see Leadhead agrees in the chat. I think there's another move left to be made between now and week 1.
All right, guys, we got a few messages for you here before we dip, and then we'll take one last look at the chat, so don't leave quite yet.
Fantastic episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, very important that you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Hey, guys, real quick before we dip out of here, you got to tonight's the night. The Great Rewards Hunt is on. So you got to join the adventure with DraftKings Casino. For fun seekers, follow the trail to huge jackpots, 3 weekly bonuses, and exclusive games. But the excitement, it's only just getting started because new players who sign up with code MileHighPod and wager a minimum of $5 to receive 500 casino spins on a featured game. Only on the most rewarding place to play, DraftKings Casino. Again, that's code MileHighPod.
That's right. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus, physically present in Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Connecticut and Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Non-withdrawable casino spins valid for featured, game only, and expired in 168 hours. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends 4/27/25 at 11:59 ET.
That's tonight, baby. So get in on that now. Kenny Kirkpatrick jumping in again to say, Zach, I know you loved Trey Henderson, and rightfully so, but when the Broncos passed on him at 20, were you concerned they didn't like him? I'm wondering if top 30 visit perhaps didn't go well. I don't think, Zach, and I'm going to let you answer him, but I don't think it's that it didn't go well. It's that maybe the medical concerns continued to prevail.
Or they just had him more as a second-round prospect, which is where he went ultimately. I thought he'd go in the first round, but, NFL evaluators agreed. I think the Broncos would have taken him at 51 if he was there, but the Patriots took him a few spots before. I was bummed, I'm not going to lie. I really wanted Trey Henderson, but the Broncos did get a running back in the second round. They invested premium capital in that position, and I'm excited to see what R.J. Harvey brings to the table.
Leadhead, love you too, big dog. And with that, guys, I think we're good for tonight. Stoked on the draft. We'll be talking about it even more tomorrow, Monday night. So before we dip out of here, let me give some shouts to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on, like the Papa Bear, Eric Holt, Phil McLaughlin, The Ronk, Taylor Christensen, Eric Flynn, The Lady D, Mike Thompson, Okie Engineer, Diamond Rattler, Kenny Kirkpatrick, Kirsten, Bailey Drummer, I love it, George Fox, T Fishes. Much love and respect. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow night.
Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.